It's time for the Access of Easy podcast, the weekly technology digest that keeps you ahead of the curve. Brought to you by EasyDNS.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Access of Easy. This is number 383, the audio compendium to the weekly newsletter from Mark Jeftovic and Joan Barnes. Len, I can see here on the camera that there is baby spit up on my sweatshirt. Shouldn't be surprised, but I wish I had changed this before, but it's too late now. What's going on? How the heck are you over there?
Joey. No, I'm good. With you wearing that, you must be wonderful because let's be honest, this is parts of the whole thing. So I
asked Len before we signed on. I had to do daddy duties. My wife was out for dinner with a few of her friends. One of them is turning 30. So I said to Len before we signed on, do I have time to walk my dog? Anytime I ask if I have time to walk the dog and it's 8:30 at night, it's what kind of day I had. And today was a banger. But yeah, you're right. Authentic is a good way to put it. I guess that's fair.
It's fun. And anybody that's wondering what it's like to be a new time parent, you could look at Joey and see how it's
this
like.
Is it.
Busy
this
as
is
can be walking his dog at 8, spit-filled shirt, but smile on his face. It's all worth it in the end.
True enough. Let's dive in. This week's quote. Well, let's go last week's quote, of course, first. I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's. I will not reason and compare my businesses to create. Lots of correct answers, but Veronica got it first. Congrats, Veronica. This week's quote, life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. Len, again, the keep it simple, stupid principle, rearing its head here on media that we participate in. If you know the answer, no searching, obviously, put it in the comments, and you get your next round of renewals on Mark over at EasyDNS. Can't beat that. Any ideas? Who would you bet on?
No? You know what? I don't even have a clue.
Me neither.
I mean, I throw the name of history, Napoleon. I don't know what, right? Like, I don't have a clue who to be, but hopefully I'm not right.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find out. I guess next week we'll know. So we got how many stories today? 5. Let's hop in. Canada, privacy. We got some heavies tonight. Google somehow makes it on twice in 5 stories, but we'll start up here in Canada.
Yeah, the Supreme Court of British Columbia, they came out swinging because they upheld an order from the Information and Privacy Commissioner because they found that Clearview AI were doing something naughty by doing their facial recognition technology, and it's a company that does that stuff. And well, they violated laws because they were scraping billions of images from the internet, including images of Canadians, to create a massive facial recognition database. But this was done without consent of people. So obviously this has caused a whole uproar here. And so what were they doing? They were collecting, using, and disclosing personal information without consent. And it's entering a different territory because the information through scraping of the internet kind of makes me wonder, are they doing anything wrong? Granted, the law said what they did, but if the information is available, really, is that really a big thing? Unless they're paying for it or they're doing nefarious ways to get the information that's usually behind closed doors. I don't know. Something like this seems to be like it's a kind of an overreach from the law, if you ask me. But either way, what they've been asked to do is stop offering its facial recognition services in Canada and cease the collection of anything moving forward, and also the disclosing of images and biometric facial arrays to anybody out there. And also, last but not least, this is the big one for them. They're asked to delete the images and information that they have collected on Canadians. Now, in Canada, I mean, I'm going to go a little bit further here. In Canada, if I'm at home, I'm able to record stuff. If I'm on a road, I'm able to record stuff as long as one party is consenting to recording it. So if they consented and it's online, it's visible on the internet, shouldn't they have access to that very same public information?
I say no. I say no.
Okay,
I think it's a question of ownership, right? What do you own about yourself? Do you own something like, facial recognition data about yourself? I don't know if you do or not. Do you own something like, posts that you've made on your page? I don't know, honestly, what you own and what you don't own, but it's something that needs to be defined soon. because it's starting now to really ramp up this idea that the scrapers are just getting whatever they want, crawling Google, crawling Facebook, whatever, and soon, if this hasn't started already, I believe that it has actually. I think the big companies are doing this already in-house. Pretty soon, Facebook will claim that it owns, all the data about you, including stuff like your face and the way your face looks on screen and all this other stuff, right? So I don't know. Clearview's they're trying to set precedent here where none exists at a time when probably the general consensus is that any bit of information about any bit of information scraped by AI is information that people don't want out there about themselves. So it's difficult. It's an uphill battle. But this also, I think there's something to be said here about like your use of social media, your use of I don't know, public walkways or something. Like how much is too much? Like should you be scraped for your facial data at traffic lights? Should you be scraped for your facial data at highway overpasses or 407 cameras? Like, should that be available just because you're out there using this? Like, I'm not sure. I don't know. And you can say like, well, 407 is a service that you're opting into. Sure. But like the sidewalk isn't, the traffic cameras on the sidewalk, do I have to subject myself to that? Is that data not mine? I don't know. There's ownership there. Some right to ownership. I don't know exactly how deep it should go, but it's deeper than it has been traditionally, I think, as the technology improves.
When you opt into going on Twitter, LinkedIn,
Sure.
Instagram, Snapchat, and you're posting stuff, and
I'm not debating that.
It's a different divide. Like you're putting yourself out there for everybody to see, and similar to us, we're going out there on YouTube and other places, and AI could scrape our information, our facial recognition, our facial features, our voices as well. And I do this with full knowledge. I'm not going to go complain I'll complain, but it's like really, the only thing I can do is delete everything and never show up again on the internet. That's my choice. I'm not going to do that. So there is something that's going to come out of this, and potentially this information could be used moving forward. My information, right? Like if I'm going to be a face on the internet, I'm aware that somebody could use it and make an AI out of that. But why would they make one out of me? And
I mean,
you're opting into something.
Yeah, I guess, but like the idea that facial surveillance should be allowed without any sort of notice or opt-in just because someone's face is online somewhere else. Like, for example, when I think about intellectual property and trademark law, just because a movie is available on Napster doesn't mean that I can open a movie theater and show it without paying, right? I realize that might be a bit of a stretch, but like we're heading the same direction. Somebody owns that data. And do I think that I should own my facial data? I think I should. Just because I put it somewhere else doesn't mean you can scrape it from me in a third location and use it. I don't buy that. Also, I'm looking forward to hearing about how the facial recognition data was not deleted and was hacked 6 months from now. We'll be talking about that in episode 425 this time next year.
Well, as a user of mostly open source software, it's not that I'm against trademarking or restriction of anything like that, but you know what? You post it out there. I'm a big fan of that, and using the information to help improve product and make life better in general, free, right? But let's move on. This phishing campaign, and it's a large scale malvertising campaign. That's what it's called.
New word. Yep. New word. Google Ads, malvertising. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's targeting Google ad users. I don't know why anybody would be a Google ad user, but either way, the criminals are impersonating Google ads by running fake ads that appear to be from Google itself. And the ads redirect users to phishing pages designed to steal login credentials for Google ad accounts. And the attackers, they are believed to be geographically dispersed, and that they're targeted to steal advertising accounts in order to resell them or to distribute more malicious ads. And it's particularly effective because the fraudulent ads, they are with a legitimate URL like ads.google.com. At least it appears like that. So it's making it very difficult for people to distinguish between that and a real Google ad. And they're using other techniques like to bypass detection, such as fingerprinting, anti-bot, traffic detection, and captchas. But in the end, how many people are out there clicking on the Google ads? I personally, I don't think the last time I clicked on anything that's a Google ad. Maybe I'm
We're not the target audience for that, for sure. But
yeah,
I'm with you. Yeah.
yeah. And when I mean, I've seen Google ads. It comes up when I do a search with using Google. I don't know. Maybe I'm trained myself to like just omit that altogether and go to what I'm trying to look for rather than something that's being pushed on me based on money. You know, somebody paid for that ad and put it at
Mhm.
the very top of the list. So I don't know. Maybe I just trained myself to avoid that. But man, I mean, it's generating a lot of money for people. Google's a $1 billion, well, $1 trillion company,
Yeah.
and the majority of the revenue comes from ads. So clearly this works. So if this is going to take a bite out of them and make people think twice, it's going to really harm Google in the long run.
You know, this is maybe the evolutionary, next piece to the story that came out. Must have been years ago now, Len. But you mentioned that on Google search, for example, you can see the first few links are ads and they're delineated as such. That was the result of another ruling. Google used to put stuff at the top without saying it was an ad, and over time, that was sort of it became frowned upon. And as people demanded more transparency from Google and other search engines, I think in the United States, I mean, Europe for sure would agree with this if they didn't set the precedent, but I think the precedent was set in the United States. Google had to delineate which of its search results were ads. It's possible now that that delineation will become even more significant, right? You'll have to highlight the links or note that the first little bit is advertising, or have a little pop-up text or something like that, because people are just stupid. Like the bottom quintile takes no days off, right? They are constantly trying to lose their money and lose their shirts on scams. And instead of trying to help that bottom quintile get to a place where they're not stupid, the justice system will continue to go after companies like Google and really tell them they need more helmets, more elbow pads, more knee pads, et cetera, instead of just telling these guys to get off their skates and stop smashing their head against the wall. But that's what that group of people does. The other thing I'll note is that there's a pretty good flow chart in the Malware Bytes article. I mean, if you fall for this, I don't know what to say. Every browser has a built-in thing to tell you whether or not this site is legit, whether or not this looks like it's phishing. It's hard to get to a site like this, and somehow people are still doing it. So, they're persistent in all the wrong ways. This bottom quintile, just skipping through warnings, skipping through, locks being open in the little animation next to the URL. Never stops for these guys. They are innovators when it comes to getting rugged.
A younger me probably wouldn't even care about that. This is a malware site or potentially not. Like it took me some time to
Sometimes I
learn.
don't care still if I know that Windows is just being stupid. Like, good example, if you download Sparrow Wallet, it doesn't want you to keep the file. It says the file's malware every time. And so,
Really?
yeah. And so you have to like go through a bit of I mean, it's not much of a process. It's like 2 steps, but you have to know what to do in order to keep that bit of software on your computer. Um, and Windows, like I said, is like, it's overcautious, right? It's hard to get to a website that is phishing for data or setting up fake admin accounts or whatever. I mean, whatever the case is, every week was another thing here, but it's difficult to do. Windows makes it very hard to do. It's really foolproof at this point in a lot of ways. So for people to be doing this, I'm just like flabbergasted. But again, bottom quintile, no breaks, man. They're smashing their heads into the wall 100 miles an hour over and over again. It's a sport.
Let's keep talking about Google. And I remember a few years ago, it was 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm still kind of on this hill. I was talking about Google eventually losing a lot of market share to competitors, and this is an example why. Their search engine, their market for the search engine has dipped below 90% for the first time in a decade, and it could be contributed to a bunch of different factors. And they're saying that rise of competitors like Bing and DuckDuckGo might be one, and there could be some specialized search engines like those focusing on academia or even shopping. It's chipping away at Google's dominance. And there's also the emergence of AI chatbots like
That's a big one.
Gemini, ChatGPT, I don't know what
How
else.
how often? I mean, ignoring the rest of the article here, you kind of got the gist of it already, but we should talk about this one. How often do you go to Google to search for something?
It frequently, it's
Do you?
one of the go-tos for searching for something. Absolutely. And it's not to say that I'm going to use these other ones in place of Google. It's now Google used to be the only place. Now it's part of a selection of things that I use in order to search for something. It gives me, like, I believe, a wider I'm throwing out a bigger net, so to speak, and
Mhm.
trying to capture that. Now, Google's notoriously bad at innovation.
Yeah.
Like, look at their history.
Yeah.
What
It's
do
all
they have
moat.
come?
It's all moat there for sure.
And they were lucky with, or they foresaw the purchase of YouTube. So either it was, great foresight, or they just got lucky. But what I'm trying to get at is, how could they continue at this pace when the world is constantly changing? How many more Android devices could they have, and just they can't saturate the market anymore. It is saturated to a point where it's going to probably be chipped away by iPhone, if anything else,
Mhm.
globally. So what do they have looking forward to say, yeah, this is a company that is forward thinking? And there's probably a few things. Maybe their self-driving car is going to work, and if that ever does, that's going to be, it's print money for them. But other things they do, I look at it, just they're just junk as a company overall. And just, I don't see the long-term success that they have. 20 years ago, nobody was holding these smartphones in their hand. In
Mhm.
20 years from now, we're probably not going to be holding these smartphones in the hand. So then what is Google going to do to try to capture our eyeballs, our attention? The revenue that comes from advertisers, where I mentioned before, 80% of the revenue from Google is from advertising dollars. Where? Is it going to be all off YouTube? I don't know. But man, like, just watching it, if they're losing market share on their search engine, like you mentioned this all the time, the signpost. This is
Yeah.
one you have to look at. Is it going to trend this way? If it does, what happens to this company? Something, it's not looking good long run for these guys.
This is why I think the AI race is important, because as companies get better at scraping data, right? They won't need to use Google as part of the scrape. They can go right to Reddit, right to Twitter, right to whatever. I use Grok a lot when I'm just
Ah,
looking for
yes.
stuff.
Yes, I forgot that
It's
one.
pretty good. I would say it's like, 7/10, 8/10 of the way there. I use Copilot when I'm surfing the web. If
Aha,
I want a quick
yes.
summary of something, I'll use Copilot. When I'm on my phone, I'll use Gemini, which is Google's product. It's pretty good. I showed you deep research the other day from Gemini. It's not great. It's okay. It's like, something that can help you if you're in a pinch or really need something detailed in 10 minutes that you don't want to search for yourself. It's good for that. But the reason I asked you how often you go to Google now is because I find myself going there less and less.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people probably find themselves going there less and less. And by the way, one of the reasons that, in my opinion, OpenAI and these other AI chatbots have this chat interface, this sort of ask a question, get an answer, discussion back and forth, almost anthro something. What do you call it when it's like a human? Anthropomorphic or something like that. I forget. But the reason it feels like that is because it keeps you there. You never actually wind up leaving to go to Google to finish a search or to get more detail. You just ask the bot, right? The bot responds to you and that's it. I think that's on purpose because that really does keep you gated. And like I said, as companies get better at keeping that information in-house, Google is going to continue to lose share. I think you're 100% right. Signpost is a good way to put it. And I think this is a big one. Google, by the way, not the only company that hasn't innovated. Apple, not much of an innovator these days. Microsoft, same thing. Anytime they try their hand at something new, it sucks. iPhone features are terrible now. I think last iteration they added like another button on the outside for a camera. No one asked for that. I don't need it. Microsoft did Teams. It blows. Google hasn't done anything in a long time. The Android phones they're kind of just middling as well now. You're at a standstill here in a lot of ways, right? There's something coming that's going to push us into the next sort of epoch of electronics and search and all these things, but I don't think it's here yet. I don't think it's not on the docket yet anywhere, but soon we'll see.
If you
It'll
had to
be there.
guess
We'll see
which
what it is.
company of those big ones would be able to innovate the best, like bring a product to market that we just have to have. Who do you think is which one do you think would be of those bigger companies?
I think it's Apple. And the reason I say that, is because if you asked me, what is Apple's innovation strategy? I actually think they have like 2 more generations of mobile device ready that they're just not releasing yet, because they can just add a button and sell another 100 million devices. And I think at some point they will say, okay, it's time for the next thing, and everyone else will follow suit. It was, little stuff that nobody thought was a good idea when they did it, and then it became the industry standard. Great example, getting rid of the cables on phones, right? Or the headphone jack, sorry. Everyone laughed at them. Samsung had 2 years of making fun of them in commercials. Then Samsung dumped it. Pixel doesn't have a headphone jack. That's one example. The other example I can think of off the top of my head is getting the notch or front-facing camera on the screen. And nobody thought that was a good idea for the longest time. And then all of a sudden, bang, everyone's doing it. And, that's the industry standard now. And so, that was one sort of middling jump that they pulled out of nowhere. And I suspect they have more like that. Google, in my opinion, hasn't innovated in anything, right? Their biggest innovation the last 10 years, 15 years is what? Probably Android OS, right? It's pretty good.
They bought that. Android was
Did they?
purchased
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So they didn't even innovate that. So what if they made? I don't know, nothing. I guess
their AI. I mean, might be.
It's just another thing, though. It's like they didn't innovate that. It's like it was like the third. They're like the third or fourth company to have a major release, right?
No, but I totally forgot to mention AI when I'm talking about the Google amount of product, their suite of products.
Oh yeah.
For example, they made a chess program. Gosh, I forget the name of it, but it learned to play chess by playing it itself.
Yeah, but like Watson did that. IBM did that.
No. But there's more to it. So the cream of the crop for chess programs, AI programs, was called Stockfish. It's called Stockfish, but that was dethroned by Google, by that program, and it just absolutely obliterated Stockfish. And I forget the numbers. They played it like 50 games or 100 games, and it was all like one-sided. Google's chess just crushed the other one. Then Google Go is another one where it absolutely creamed the best player. I forget, he's from Japan or Korea.
Is that like Chinese Checkers Go or something? What's the name of that game? I forget
something
now.
like that. But it learned. So it knows how to do these things. It programmed these types of software to like learn, like in a sandbox, so to speak. That may be their thing. I don't know. It's not something they bought. It's something they built in-house.
None of those things are making the stock price go up.
No, it isn't.
So, like, how much of an innovation?
AlphaZero. That's it. AlphaZero.
Cool.
So, yeah, it's incredible. Like how it learned how to play chess, and at the very best level, nothing competes against it. No other program. Human beings, long time ago, it crushed them.
But who cares? But like, who cares? Like,
so, like I was saying, like it's that, and if somehow like that could be tied in, that type of AI model with their self-driving car, that could be printing money for them.
Okay.
If it doesn't work in that regards, then it's just all that money is spent on that just simply burned away.
Like they bought self-driving too, right? And Apple tried to do self-driving, decided against it as well.
No, Waymo, they're expanding in different markets now. I think they got a couple of more coming this year.
Do they? Because they're in like Palo Alto and San Fran, like these sort of valley companies or valley cities.
Now they're going more in the Northeast. So they got 2 more cities they're going to get. So they have billions of miles that were done virtually, and I'm not sure how many miles in terms of real life, but it's there. You could use it. And some of the things that you read about those AI, like for example, there was the self-driving cars, is there was a tow truck that picked up a heavy truck, and as you know, that it was pulling it backwards, so the truck that was being towed was turned around, right? So it picked up the rear. Because it didn't recognize this thing was being pulled backwards, the self-driving car smashed into it.
Oh my God.
It just, these are little things that you just, as a human being, we're able to process it because but it just doesn't know what to do. But it needs to go through these it's like a child, so to speak. Right? Eventually, if ever that's ever figured out, that could truly revolutionize the way we move.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Self-driving is a huge innovation that's been like a white whale for a long time.
Yeah, and it may be there forever. It may never get there.
I mean, I think it will at some point. But you're right. So far, it's been underwhelming to say the least. Although I do hear pretty steadily. I mean, we're way in the weeds now, but that the latest FSD update on Teslas is like it's really close now.
I see a lot of video on YouTube and Twitter or X about how it drives from like LA to San Francisco, or LA to San Diego.
Yeah.
And it does it without any intervention. Like, yeah, it's getting better. It's a different way of doing things. It's using all cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So Google uses LiDAR, I believe, as well as some other things. So it's a different approach. So it's kind of the Tesla model trying to emulate the way a human does. It relies mostly on vision to figure stuff out. Sorry. So anyways, let's keep moving on.
One swear word's not bad. Leave it in there.
So the Toronto District School Board.
I love this.
If you were I lived in Toronto.
If you were a student, since computers were used in classrooms, your data leaked to unknown.
Just about back then.
Pretty close, man. Pretty close.
Yeah, back in the 80s, we were using the Icon computer, which was a Ontario Initiative run computer that was.
I remember. I had Icons when I was in school.
Yeah. So if you were using an Icon or into like Pentium, whatever we're using these days,
Scenics, there was like Scenics computers that had Windows for a long time too. Like just absolute bottom of the barrel garbage, just garbage. Barely even turn those things on. It could barely even run all the right. They had to run all the right type in low graphics mode. That's how bad they were.
So if you were a Toronto District School Board student or a parent of a student from the school board between the years of 1985 to 2017, wow, there's been
not 85 to 2017, 85 to 2024.
Well, it's two different tranches. From 85 to 2017, names, date of birth, gender, health card numbers, home addresses, phone numbers may have been accessed. From September 2017 to present, medical information, parent guardian information, and absolutely other information was exposed.
Why does the school have that data at all? And secondly, why are they keeping it for 40 years? What are they listen, here's the thing, okay? As soon as your class graduation photo is no longer as soon as you look like you're an older generation, you have to delete the files. That's the rule from now on. You can't keep stuff for 40 years. It's just insane. Your health card never changes. That's data that's going to be, with you for your whole life. And now someone else has it. Parents, same thing. Now these poor kids from 2017, medical records.
They want to know what grade you got in home ec.
God, yeah. Baking. It's just called baking, not home ec.
Whatever the heck it's called. I remember it was home ec. So they want to know what grade you got. So if it's not good enough, you're not going to be able to get into that basket weaving program in
secondary basket weaving at Conestoga. Yeah, it's going to affect you. Yeah. You have to go to the satellite campus. You won't be able to go to the big one.
I think that's in New Delhi, if I recall correctly.
It's named. All I know is it's named after the president. That's all I know. Tippett or whatever his name is. I hate that guy. Anyway,
so let's talk about this recent report from Kybal, and it's the threat intelligence firm. They revealed exposure of thousands of accounts belonging to 14 major vendors. May have been hacked, and information could have been stolen from places such as like McAfee, CrowdStrike, Palo Alto Networks, Fortinet. We talked about them last week, and so the leaked data could include a range of like internal accounts and customer data across web and cloud information or cloud environments. And so if you were a user or a customer of any of those places, like who's actually using McAfee these days, to be honest? CrowdStrike, this is one we talked about before. This is another.
CrowdStrike big in the news a few months ago, obviously.
Yeah, we did a good stock.
These are all the heavies. Fortinet last week, CrowdStrike over the summer. McAfee, I mean, he's literally got videos where he's making Caracal breakfast drinks that are 80% liquor on a boat somewhere, and there's a guy with a machine gun behind him.
He's been tweeting out.
I know. I saw that today. He's back.
Yeah. So I don't know. From the grave, he's releasing a altcoin or whatever, a meme coin.
What it was? No.
Yeah. From what I could be wrong, but that's what I recall. It's like a meme coin or altcoin that's being released. Yeah. I have nothing else to say about this report. Too bad, so sad if you're a customer that got pwned here. So.
Totally. Yeah, this is pretty funny, man. Like the research assessed these leaks likely came through potentially critical internal systems such as password managers, authentication systems, device management platforms, or Len, common internet services, AWS, Microsoft Online, Salesforce. Another one bites the dust, man. The more you play in these sandboxes, the more you wind up vulnerable. And this is another one that's going to be interesting to watch. Overall, look, what do we say all the time? If your information's out there, it's only a matter of time until it gets stolen. It's not an if, it's a when these days. So
Just like
change your password
picture,
regularly, change the exclamation mark to an ampersand, then to a $sign, then to a pound sign. Over, keep going.
Just add one more character.
Get the rotation. Yeah, yeah, get the rotation. I had to look at my keyboard there to see what else is there. Percentage sign, the up arrow. Some good ones there. Yeah, there you go.
Do it in pinyin, which is, I think, the Chinese version of typing in. So who's gonna guess? Right? See, throwing a few
innovation,
few characters that is Western character, a couple of pinyin characters. Who's gonna guess that? That's gonna be impossible to figure out. So
good night, everybody. That was 383. Don't forget, sign up for the newsletter, accessofeasy.com, and subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel. Watch us every week. Talk about the latest and greatest in data breach and overreach. And my name is Joey. That's Len. See you next week.
okay.